fire this up.
You got it. It's all you, Rod. Thank you.
You betcha. Well, welcome again to the Young Entrepreneur Syndicate. Jim and I are happy to have you tonight. I get the pleasure of doing a core value teaching on coach. That's our core value. And believe it or not, the topic is teachable, learn from others. And Jim mentioned last week, it was so funny because we have a whole curriculum set out there, and then it just, whoever is up that night gets whatever that topic is. And so it's always fun. You got to rise to the challenge, and being teachable is one of those things. And those of you who have read my book, The Warpath Alliance, there is actually a whole component there on being teachable. And I read through my chapter. I wrote the book, so I figured I better reread the chapter and see what I would do. And I was counseled by a wise person once. I said, well, maybe I just need to do a second edition, an updated version. And someone said, no, just write another book. And after reading what I wrote about Teachable, I realized I didn't hit it hard enough. So we're going to hit it hard tonight. All right, that's where we're at. So first, we like to start with a quote or two. I found a whole bunch. So you don't have to write this down. You can rewatch the video. Here's the first one. There's nothing worse than a know-it-all that knows it all. Okay. Next, the less people know, the more stubbornly they know it. This one, the smaller your reality, the more convinced you are that you know everything. The dumbest people I know are those who know it all. And this one, if you think you know it all, you are not listening. That's probably my favorite. But as chance would have it, today, one of the people I follow on Instagram and Twitter, they've got a blog. It's Farnham Street. And it says this: so much advantage in life comes from being willing to look like a fool in the short term. And he goes on to say that one reason it gets harder to try new things as you age is that doing new things often makes you look like you don't know what you're doing. The more established you are, the harder it becomes to look like you don't know something. It's easier to hold on to old ideas, even if they're not effective. So my whole goal tonight is to make sure that we are, in fact, stretching our own minds, stretching our own boundaries, challenging ourselves to, in fact, I posted today, I didn't even think about this, my post on Instagram today, I better get to that. Everything ties together somehow. Will I get back to that? Maybe. Got to find where I'm at on here. Sorry for the delay. That's how prepared I was. And I am prepared. Get ready. So my quote was from the Greek Antisthenes. The most useful piece of learning is to unlearn that which isn't true. Wanted to make sure I got that one right. The most useful piece of learning is to unlearn that which isn't true. I think I'll modify that for business purposes and say to unlearn that which has changed or that which is no longer working. So we'll take it out of that big context and put it into a real context of work. And my first point, I actually have 9 points tonight. Anybody taking notes? 9 of them. We're going to blow through them pretty quick. But the first one is application. If you hear new things, you read new things, you learn new things, but you fail to apply them, you've learned nothing. Okay? It has to be applied. And I was thinking about this. How can I illustrate this? And I was thinking back to a time where I worked for a gentleman, a family-owned business, and I actually tried to buy this business 3 different times, right? 3 buy sells, very creative, different offers, and he wouldn't sell. And ultimately, I ended up leaving. I just said, I can't do that anymore. I'd started another business that was doing very well, and I left. I gave my notice. I did everything proper and in order, but I left. And he called me back. It didn't take long. It was about 4 months later. He called me back. And I had tried everything. I'd worked for him for almost a decade. And he had every opportunity to learn what I had and what I'd done to make this business very successful, very profitable. And yet, after I left in 4 months, He was in the red. He was bleeding. He didn't know what to do. It took that long for it to all unravel. And he called me up and he said, I need your help. And that was my first business consulting gig. And I didn't even know what I was doing. I said, hey, look, here's the deal. I won't answer the phone. I won't deal with customers. I will come in there. I will fix your problem. And this is what you'll have to pay me. And it was a heck of a lot more than he had ever paid me before. But I got to set the rules because he was not teachable. He didn't learn from me while I was in his employ. So it costs you money sometimes if you're not willing to learn from the people who are around you, people doing new things, or if you're just stuck in your ways, it's going to cost you money. The good news is if you're an entrepreneur, you can find ways to capitalize on other people's need to be teachable. So the point is be looking and be ready, but also not ready for just opportunity. Be ready to absorb new information that you can actually utilize. And I'll give you some other examples on that in a little bit. But my second point, so the first one's application. You got to apply what you learn. The second one is ask questions. And we hear that all the time. No such thing as a stupid question. And that's absolutely true, but you have to ask them. And sometimes, why is it we don't want to ask? And it goes back to what we talked about earlier, because you want people to think you understand it on the first go round, right? Well, if I'm the only one asking, I'm the only one so dense I didn't get it. Right? So we have to get out of that mindset and just be willing to press in and say, when you learn something new, ask more in-depth questions to make sure you understand it, or also to vet the concept, right? If you've got doubts or if there's a trigger or you're thinking, well, that doesn't quite sound right, then delve deeper, at least ask the questions, right? It's not going to do us any good to just be hovering on the outside and thinking, well, that feels kind of uncomfortable. Get in there and ask questions. Number 3, have a strategy. If you're absorbing new information, you need to have a strategy. You need to find ways to test that application. And part of the way you can do this is you can hire teachable people. You can hire people. You can surround yourself with people who are teachable. Don't surround yourself with know-it-alls, right? We all have our comfort zones. And we tend to congregate within those comfort zones. And we need to press outside of those comfort zones to be around other teachable people and work with those people. Many places create their own echo chambers, and it just becomes a vacuum of the same old ideas. It sucks up fresh ideas. It sucks up energy. And the energy that they're bringing to it is stale energy. It may not be the kind of energy you need to move forward. And I will tell you this, action creates more action. So being around those different environments will make a difference. And Jim, I hope you weigh in on your topic at the end of my thing tonight with going to a Toastmasters, because you and I both jumped out there and did something that we'd not done before. And again, you have to be teachable and put yourself in those uncomfortable situations to do something. So having that strategy is being willing to look at new ideas and then implement them. And even if you have to massage them a little bit, do that. So in that job I was telling you about before, where I ended up being consultant, I was constantly, this was in retail, I was constantly looking at new products, new lines, new venues, new ways to advertise. I know I'd read the book from McKay, how to swim with the sharks without getting eaten alive. And I was so inspired. I thought, that's it. I'm gonna just start doing all kinds of crazy things. So we brought in a Boy Scout line, right? To get all the Cub Scouts, Webelos, Boy Scouts, bring in new customers. We worked on a martial arts line, upholstery foam. We joined a buying group. And then I really got into my own comfort zone and started mail ordering, because we did a whole lot of logging, workwear and specialty items. Started mail ordering to Ketchikan, Alaska, where prices were so outrageous. I thought, I bet I could ship them up there and save these people money. And I even dived into a big mail order thing, all of which moved the dial. All of it did something different. But you have to, when you have these new ideas, you have to take that risk and jump in and learn new things. Learning about mail order and learning about the back end of that, which, by the way, led to the ability to work with counter assault, the bear repellent, the developer, the owner of that company, was just starting that line, trying to launch it out there. We actually started a business to launch that line. Didn't know anything about shipping chemicals, right? And all the stuff that went into that, getting accounts set up and doing all the material data safety sheets. It was a lot of learning. But to get out there and be on the front edge of any new idea or new business or new product, you're going to have to get into a zone where you are not comfortable. You're going to have to learn new things. And that means you have to be teachable. So doing all those things, just looking for new opportunities isn't enough. You've got to have the courage to apply it. You're going to have to take the plunge. Okay. Next point. This is number 4. Retool it. Somebody else's idea might be good. There might be a nugget in there that if you tweaked it, it could work for you. McKay was in stationery. He had an envelope company, but it was from him I got the inspiration to do mail orders, right? With, a workwear line. It's just retool it. Find an idea, get inspired, retool what works for another business and figure out what could you do to make it work in your business. And that gets back to the whole stealing ideas from people, right? If they're not trademarked, right? If they're not copyrighted, stealing an idea, massaging it, making your own is not bad. That's guerrilla marketing, right? It's what it's all about. So thinking outside the box and then think bigger than the box, right? Once you're out of the box, think bigger than boxes, right? That's where it will go, retooling it. Okay, so number 5, start an idea file. Okay, if you look over my shoulder right over here, that whole rack of folders, those are my ideas. Those are idea files. There are business ideas in there, or there are some things I started in there, or there are things that maybe my grandkids will end up with some of those. But I have an idea file. Make it tangible. If you've got an idea, it may not be great for today. It may not be great for what you're currently working on. It may not be great for the business you're in. It may come in handy for a client you have down the road. It's a resource. So your ideas can be a resource for your own future or maybe something else. So write those ideas down, whether you're doing it electronically. Rachel, Taylor, all the young people on this call, you probably have your idea files on a computer. I like to write. I'm still old school and old fashioned, but I'll tell you what, it'll be a treasure for somebody when they get into your files and say, man, the cutting edge that this person thought about, wonder why they didn't do it. What a great idea these people had. I wonder what kept them from doing it. But at least have the idea file there and look at it 5 years from now and say, great idea. Why didn't I do something with it? It's not too late. All right. It's never too late. So that's the idea file. Next one on the list, number 6, a memory jogger. I want you to go back to your own memory to find new ideas. All right. What I mean by that is, what have you learned in every career, every job? And if you've worked your way up the ladder in something in all those different steps, what was your takeaway from each step as you worked into that? I don't care if it started off, with your first job mowing lawns. What did you learn about collecting, getting into uncomfort zones, about the importance of maintaining equipment? Little things, the being able to adapt to changing weather conditions, right? Memory joggers. What are the important things that you learned? Just go back to that and then go a step deeper and start thinking about the people you worked with. Who are the most influential people that you worked with? Both bosses and colleagues. What were their best traits? What did you like most about those people you worked with? What did you like least about some of the people you worked with? And just to get your memory going a little, this is going to juice your wheels a little bit. I know, Taylor, you had a retail experience when you were a teenager in high school, where I know Taylor wanted 2 weeks off at the end of her summer break to literally start a new part of her dance career and to have a week off. And the people she was working for, adults who owned a business, said, well, you can't quit. And they kept putting her on the schedule. And it was really, what a learning experience for her to be able to say, this is your business. I'm just an employee and I'm just a student and I need to go to work on school. That's my job. Your job is to run your business. And it was a real challenge because we weren't the parents that got on the phone and called people and went through the rigmarole. Our children learned how to do this themselves. And so it might have been difficult. I know it was an uncomfort zone, but those are great tools to learn from. Those are part of that memory jogger. What were the good managers, the good bosses, the good business owners, the bad business owners? And when you start making that list, it's going to help really just get all this teachability. What is it they didn't learn? And more importantly, what is it they taught you? If you're truly teachable, you should have learned something from all of those different opportunities. Okay, number 7. Told you we're going to blow through this quick. Learning is fundamental. I believe that there was a whole ad campaign kicked off. I'm sure it was a national educational system, but I think it was reading is fundamental. Well, learning is fundamental, right? We have to want to learn. And that means we have to do it with intention and with purpose, right? And it needs to be fun. We talked about this last week. I mentioned at the beginning of this call. If you're not having fun, you're doing something wrong. This should be something that you embrace because it's enjoyable. Learning should be fun. And we have to want to learn, right? That's what being teachable means, wanting to learn. It's just that simple. If you don't want to learn something new, if you're holding yourself back for some reason, you're not teachable. You are a closed vessel, and that's where it's going to stop. And I don't care if you start by learning a new game, a new board game, doing a puzzle, learning new computer programs, learning new apps. You might want to learn math again. Maybe the new math, right? Maybe we can go out and teach the new math to the Common Core people, right? Make it the new math. Language, learning a new language. What is it that's holding us back from being teachable? What is it we can do to get our minds engaged? Following different people on Instagram. I know John Quick, there are all kinds of motivational people out there that get your mind engaged in different things. So don't be afraid to start doing something different and make it fun, right? Number 8, be expectant. Opportunity is everywhere. If your eyes and your mind are open, it's there. You just have to be looking for it. All right. It's not going to come and beat you. Well, sometimes it will. So I've always said sometimes opportunity, if you're not going to take your part in it, sometimes it'll come over and knock you alongside the head and say, hey, wake up. I need somebody to do this. Right. But be expectant, be looking for that, be waiting for that. And then don't be surprised when something happens, when that door opens up. And this is my most important one right here, number 9. Pass it on. Share what you've learned. Share it with your family, share it with friends, share it with your colleagues. Teaching something makes us a better student. And I know it's a paradox, but it's absolutely true. When you are teaching, you are preparing yourself to be a better student. So when you learn something new, if you're really teachable, pass it on. Teach it to someone else. And don't wait. Talk about it. That's where that energy comes from. That's where action comes from. When you learn something, even if it's something old that doesn't apply, but you're sharing something that's just of interest with someone else, it gets other people excited. There's an energy that's created, and then you start riding that wave. So that's my 9 points on being teachable. Might be in the next chapter of the Warpath Alliance Part 2 or 2.0. And you can weigh in on that or anything else that's on your mind, business or otherwise. Take it away, Jim, but I do want to hear about Toastmasters.
Yeah, thanks, Rod. Good lesson. I could probably spend equal time going through each one of those topics because they're all important. And just going back to the teachable theme here, and you brought up Toastmasters. So it's possible I've got to give a big speech in January to a very, very large group. And I thought, well, I'm going to jump into a Toastmasters meeting and, brushing up my skills. I've never been to Toastmasters in my life. I'm familiar with it. I know what it is. Rod recently went in Columbia Falls, received a whole bunch of accolades for his performance. And I thought, well, I'm in Kalispell, Montana. How big could it be? Maybe there'll be 3 or 4 people in there. I'll go in there all cocky and arrogant, right? But no, I went in there with a willingness to see what it was all about. And I walked in the room, it was very official. They had a chairman and a formality to the whole deal. But there was over 20 people there. So it wasn't some small podunk Toastmasters meeting, so immediately I'm like, okay, this is a little intimidating. There's a lot of people here. And they started rolling through the day's agenda and how they were going to critique the 2 speakers of the day and, the slang, watching for slang, the integration of the keyword for the day, inflection time, like all these rules. I thought, wow, this is much harder than I thought it was going to be if I'm going to get involved with this group. So I listened to 2 stories and, they did a great job. And the whole time, these people were so animated. And I'm thinking, I'm not that animated. Thank God I didn't have to speak today, right? Well, they don't tell you what the meeting's all about. You get an agenda, and I don't know what any of it means. They get to the part where the moderator gets up. He says, okay, the topic is Old Man Winter. And Old Man Winter's blowing into your house. What do you do? And he kind of adds a little bit more flair to that. He says, Julie, can you please speak on Old Man Winter? So Julie gets up and walks up to the podium, and she's got to speak for 90 seconds. I'm like, wow, I think he's randomly calling people out of the audience. I hope he doesn't call me. I'm new. Well, lo and behold, he called 4 people out of the audience, and I was number 4. So I did have to get up. I did have to speak. I did have to follow the rules and mind my P's and Q's. And when all was said and done, I was way out of my comfort zone, even though I thought I would be in my comfort zone. But I was willing to be taught. I was willing to listen and pay attention. And at the end of the day, I won the blue ribbon for the day for best speech. So clearly my performance warranted that. I thought maybe it was a ploy to get me back the following week, which I will probably attend again. But, when we put ourselves in uncomfortable situations, we can surprise ourselves with what we learn or who we meet or where it takes us. I think to Rod's point tonight is just being teachable and willing will take us, wherever we want to go, especially as it relates to our own goals and business endeavors. So don't be afraid to get out there, get out on a limb. I was actually reminded in this book I was reading, it was written in 1983 about Toastmasters, and then Rod brought it up too. So even some of the old books still bring value. Just a couple quick notes on some other Rod's other topics. I love his idea file. I keep an idea file. I just pulled something out of it for our high school curriculum last month. It was an assessment test for restaurants. And that file had been around for about 30 years. So don't ever think that this stuff gets outdated. And by the way, I'm pretty much online digital files with everything, but there's a tremendous amount of value in handwriting your ideas and your thoughts. So I do incorporate some personal handwritten stuff, especially as it relates to my 5 important tasks for the day. Those are all handwritten. The notes are handwritten. And then small twists to my goals and objectives are handwritten. So I think there's some value to that. So anyways, Rod,
Okay.
great job.
Okay.
Great 9 topics.
I got to jump in. This is Rachel. Jim, of course you won the blue ribbon for the day at the Toastmasters. Okay. Well, I mean, once a fierce competitor, I think that you're a competitor in all areas of your life, right?
True.
Like I was watching that video that you did today that was on social media about, you have to bring that same mentality of being an athlete to your business. And I think you do across all different areas, regardless of what it is, whether it's business or parenting or speaking at Toastmasters, you're a competitor all the way. So I thought that was great. And I have to be the third person to agree with you guys on the idea. What'd you call it? Keeping the ideas?
The idea file?
The idea file. Yes. Okay. I call it something else. But yes, I keep it on my phone because I get these ideas, whether I'm at soccer practice with the kids or I'm picking them up from school or I'm on a run or a bike ride. They come to me all the different times and places, and I always have my phone with me. So I keep them there. And I had actually over time, I started organizing them in different buckets because it was easier to keep track of them all. And I go back all the time and reference them. So I love that. It's really powerful. And sorry, I'm a little out of breath. I'm exercising.
Good job, Rachel. By the way, thank you for the compliment. It goes back to why I've recommended so often the 75 hard program. I know Jim's on here. He completed that. Rachel, you completed yours. Is that it does bring that animal instinct to go out and win and gives you something to pull from. And most of us probably have those experiences somewhere in life that you can pull from. But yes, I do integrate my sports and desire to win at everything I try to do. As often as I can. So I appreciate you pointing that out. But a lot of that comes from continuing to add challenges like the 75 hard program and other things. So anyways, I'm being teachable. What's next, Rod?
Exactly. I don't know. I didn't even bring my calendar up. You're up next week. So, but what's up next? Who's got something else to add? Anybody? What did you learn this week, or what did you learn today? Jim's got something.
Playing off the Toastmasters, someone I came across on Instagram recently, his username is Ask Vin. So it's AskVinH. And he is like a master speaker. And he provides some tremendously valuable content on how to be a better speaker. And they come across just as little nuggets, everything from speed, intonation, just a lot of little things. And I've picked up a lot of really good stuff. And he's got a very unique accent. I think he's like Vietnamese, but he's from Australia. He's got a voice that you want to listen to more of his content just because of his accent. So that was one thing. I did have a question. I know Jim and Rod, I spoke with you separately over the last week. I finally got kind of the handcuffs off to go and start selling. And my first thought that kind of raced through my head was, what is that sales call? Like, what is that? I've talked with Brendan Balks, thinking about like a sales script, or, what are the key points of that sales call? I've got resources to look into. I've got some videos I've been catching up on YouTube, but what advice do you have for starting to make those cold calls or planning to those cold calls? I think with certain low key, like the insurance agent, local reps, I think that's a little easier. But as I get into larger organizations, what recommendations do you have for kind of preparing for those first calls?
I'll start, and then Jim, I'll let you jump in on that. The first thing that I will tell you, Jim, is pick up the phone. I'm serious. A person can sit there and write a script out, or have someone have a script out, and then it has to be your own language. And you literally just have to pick up the phone and be real with people. And if you have what your top selling point is, you need to have your hooks and keep it very simple. And my advice to you is this: whatever you're doing, think of it in 15 seconds or 30 seconds maximum. Okay? Radio ads, TV ads, they're given a whole spiel. They can tell a whole story in 15 seconds or 30 seconds. And if you're taking longer than that, you're taking too long. That's number one. Keep it short and simple, but be real. And the biggest drawback I've seen to people who are especially making cold calls or even warm market calls is they just can't pick up the phone. You got to pick up the phone and dial. And when someone says hello, just say hello back. Introduce yourself and make it like you're talking to a real person in person, because you are. And that's the biggest drawback I've seen, literally, is people just talking themselves out of picking up the phone because they weren't ready. They didn't think they had the perfect script. You'll never have the perfect script because everybody's different. Pick up the phone, but have your key points and know what it is you're selling and believe in it. Those two things will get you the conversation. But I mentioned to you too, Jim, talk to the right person. Make sure you're talking to the right person. So that's the first two pieces of advice. The third piece of advice, I think, is don't necessarily make yourself be infallible. Tonight's lesson is being teachable. So sometimes, and this is, even getting into Carnegie, asking for their help. If I need your help finding the right person to talk to about this product, engage them in helping you solve a problem. It'll get you where you're going faster, and they're gonna know that you're a real person, not just some salesman slamming stuff into them. I even have an example of that I'll give, and then I'm gonna turn it over to Jim. When I was doing car sales, I didn't like doing ups on the lot. I never wanted to go out and talk to somebody who was just looking, because they're just looking, right? Anybody ever buy a car and some salesman comes up to you? I never ever wanted to be that salesperson, so I never was. Although I had to go out and do my job, I never walked out without looking like I was doing something completely different. That was my strategy. I didn't learn it from anyone. I walked around with a clipboard. And if I walked out and saw somebody looking and I said, hey, I'm out here doing an inventory. Are you needing some help? Maybe I can find somebody, or I'll be done in a few minutes. So I always took myself out of the sales mode to be in the help mode. And I was very successful because I didn't go out in sales mode. I went out in help mode. And it was just a mindset. I was still there to sell, but it was my mindset to be helpful and not be the proverbial salesperson. So you have to find where your comfort zone is. That's where I found my comfort zone, and it worked for me. And the aggressive salespeople never outsold me, ever. So just take that for what it's worth. Be humble, be real, be authentic. Jim, your thoughts?
you.
Yeah, and I got the benefit of having a couple extra minutes to formulate my response. Rod's right. First of all, pick up the phone, right? You gotta start somewhere. So start where you're at, and that's picking up the phone or showing up at somebody's door. The number one reason why somebody doesn't get elected for an official position, they don't ask for the vote. Number one reason why somebody doesn't go to church, nobody invited them, right? My number one thing is don't forget to ask for the sale. Don't forget to ask for the sale. You're calling them for a reason, so don't forget to ask for the sale. But, I think what resonates more with me in terms of a piece of advice, and by the way, I love the fact that you asked an important question, because we're all going to benefit from it. There's nobody on this call and none of our members that will not benefit from this. We're all in sales. We're selling something, whether that's our services or our product. And we could all use a refresher on how to make a sale, or what should we be thinking about upon making that sale. You have an opportunity to start from scratch with your career as a salesperson, represent a product that you're fairly passionate about, or at least you're excited about. That's the message that you gave me. So I'm excited for you. But I think one of the biggest factors to your success will be your knowledge. Okay. You need to ramp up and get up to speed. The knowledge of your product is going to help you more than almost anything else you're going to do, because there's nothing worse than having somebody try to sell you something and you don't really know the product or the service or the opportunity or the customer itself, right? And their potential needs, right? So really ramp up on your knowledge, because that will solve a lot of the challenges that you'll have as a salesperson, right? Taylor on the call, her new product's going to be phenomenal. There's probably not a single thing that she couldn't answer about that product, because she's gone all in on her research, her design elements. She's passionate about it. When somebody comes to her, she knows her product, right? Inside and out. And so I'd expect the same of you. And what's also great about you starting fresh is that you have the ability to start out honestly and authentically, right? Who you are, what you represent, how you represent it, and utilizing that knowledge that you've learned about that product or service to convey that to your potential customers. You'll win all day long. And don't forget to ask for the sale. So those are my 3 bullet points. It's interesting because I taught in class today for the high school students. And one of the biggest points about building confidence, which of course you need when you're trying to make sales, was your base of knowledge, right? So it keeps resonating in a lot of things that you can do. So I would highly recommend that you get up to speed and know your materials inside and out.
Hey, I have a question. Jim, what is your new business? Is it a product, a service? I'm sorry, I don't know what it is.
So in a nutshell, it is a cyber risk and compliance training platform. It provides it provides organizations of all sizes the ability to train all their employees with video content. And it also provides the ability to provide that, or to assign them phishing emails. So you can basically test your employees to see if they're clicking on content that they shouldn't be clicking on. If they fail those tests, you can then assign them immediate training on phishing. And it also provides deep web monitoring for everyone in the organization or a subset of the organization. Along with that, there are also other tools on the platform that provide information, compliance programs, policies, cybersecurity policies, as well as audit trails for everything that they may do that would help them reduce their cyber insurance premiums. That was not a 30-second spiel, so I'll have to work on that.
That was pretty close.
That's okay. It was really helpful. I think after the first description, I pretty much had a handle on it, and I was fairly confident that the timing for this business is really spot on, and a lot of people are going to need it or be afraid enough about what's going on right now with technology to buy it. And it reminds me of something that Jordan Belfort, you know who that is?
Yes.
Okay, I read his book and thought it was great, by the way. He says that people buy from you based on the 3 types of trust. And it's either trust in you, trust in your product or service, or trust in your organization. So as you're building this company from scratch and you're developing these new relationships and you're asking for the sale and doing everything that Jim and Rod talked about, I would also just say, think about, what trust button are you pushing on each one of these as you're building these relationships and making these phone calls?
Okay. Thank you.
Good points, Rachel.
Rod, I want to weigh in real quick. By the way, if you're on this call or you listen later, Jim is using his superpowers right now because Jim built a relationship in the Lion's Den, which is providing this opportunity because he's an active member of the Den. And here he is also a member of this group utilizing our teaching to enhance the launch of this new company. So Jim, there's no doubt that what you're doing is going to pay dividends, 1,000x times what you're investing in yourself to be teachable, to network and be in the right places. And you're really serving as a great model for how we benefit from being involved and being active members, right? Participants. So thank you for that. And, really following, the level of participation you have. It's been great. So appreciate you.
Sure thing. I'm enjoying it. It's fun. And it's good to leverage the 2 different organizations because they come from completely different angles.
Yeah.
So there's opportunity to kind of fill the gaps all around.
Well, that was
And
intentional.
I certainly appreciate all the help.
As you know, I'm also a Lion's Den member, and that was intentional, right? We don't want to compete with what Sean's doing. I think that there's a component of that in everybody's life, and sometimes you just need to be shook real hard, and Sean's great at doing that. We're intently focused on what we do over here, so I think you got a great balance. Good job. Sorry, Rod, you're taking over here.
Don't apologize. You can take over all you want when we're helping people and giving accolades. Anybody else want to weigh in? Anything else at all? Taylor, update on church and state?
Hey, well, I don't have a huge update right now on church and state besides that I got an awesome text that I have a possible branding iron on the way for our products. So thanks, Dad, for that. Really just so excited to have lots of support and excitement, knowing that others are just as excited as I am about what's to come really helps. I did want to say though, your points 6 and 7, making things fun, and also your takeaways from people or the people you've worked with, or the processes that you've worked in. And I was thinking about like, what are some of my key takeaways? If I just take a quick look into the past, all the things that I've done, my main takeaway is that I've worked for a lot of people, and I can think of one particular company I worked for that I loved so much because they made it fun. So it's like they kind of go together. This person I'm thinking of, she valued the talents I had, and she drew me in. I felt like an equal almost. I feel like that's really important, and that's how I want to make other people feel. And when I think about it, and all of the jobs I've had, it really is so rare, because I've only had one place that I've worked for that made it fun. Like, we would choreograph together, and we jived, and I just feel like, goodness, we should not be down on ourselves, because we have so much value to bring when you think about how rare it really is to be in an organization that has that kind of energy, that really values the individual and draws out your talents like that. So I just appreciated that you mentioned those two things.
Thanks, Taylor. You just reminded me, when you're surrounded with the right people, it creates its own energy. And the right people, it gets into what Jim always talks about and what we talk about here on Young Entrepreneur Syndicate, and that's values. And I'll shout out to my three partners in sales. When we created a sales organization, I built a sales team. In 8 years that we sold together, there was not one person that called in late or sick in 8 years. Not once. We covered each other. If we had, surgeries or whatever, we covered each other's back. But you want to know what kind of energy you can get when you surround yourself with the right people? It is amazing, and you can become unstoppable. So thanks for that, Taylor. It really is. And when you're in sync, people see it, people feel it. When you're on stage, the audience gets it. They get to feel it. So it's awesome stuff.
Taylor,
Anyway,
is there a website or social media for Church and State?
Hey, thanks for asking, Jim. Yeah, Church and State Designs on Instagram. I do have a website, but I'm waiting to build it up until I have my full run of product in hand. So we still have to work on photography, and I'm making plans for various ads and stuff. Thanks, Jim. I see you put that up there in the chat. Anyway, yeah, Church and State Designs on Instagram. That's where I'm starting right now.
New follower now.
there you go. All right. Anybody else? Anything else? I do want to say, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll announce next week's call and a couple reminders before you let us all go.
Sure.
And by the way, look, we're all here to support one another too. There's a reason why there's a directory on the back end of the Young Entrepreneur Syndicate. If your name's on there or somebody's name on there, that means they've agreed to having their information out there. Feel free to reach out to them. I know that Jim, as he mentioned already, that he was speaking with Brendan, who's also a member. His information's on there. Brendan's kind of a sales specialist. But please feel free to network and reach out to one another. And let's use this as a tool or resource. That includes Rod, myself, and Rachel. We're happy to connect. Also, there is a podcast that Rod and I are doing on a weekly basis now. If you have not heard it, it's a little bit of an extension of what we talk about on Mondays, plus anything that's come up between Monday and Thursday is when we record. You can find that on my channel on just about any platform out there. The answer is yes. The answer is yes. Podcast, search that, and you will find Rod and my episodes under, you'll see the logo for Young Entrepreneur Syndicate, and you can check those shows out. And anybody that I'm interviewing for my regular shows, the answer is yes, is bringing value to entrepreneurs as well. So feel free to click on any of those shows. But intentionally, Rod and I are recording a weekly podcast. Rachel's also set us up a YouTube channel, which we all talk about a variety of topics outside of what we're talking about here. And they're just real quick 60-second blurps. You can pick that up on YouTube. So don't be afraid to go over to the Young Entrepreneurs Syndicate YouTube channel. And then there's all kinds of written materials on our website, as well as great books and authors. We've name dropped a few books tonight. You will find most of those things on our website. And finally, if you need a little referral fee money, we've got a nice referral program as well on the Young Entrepreneur Syndicate. So we're trying to throw as many tools at this group as possible so that you have lots of opportunities to be successful with what you're doing, or resources to be better, or even if it's making a couple bucks on referral fees. So that's that. And then next week, I'm going to be teaching on human capital. And that'll be a fun topic, because I don't think we realize how much human capital we actually have, and how intentional we should be about human capital. So that's next week's topic. Look forward to teaching on that. Rod, I'll let you close this out.
Well, I'm going to close this out with a little Christmas sales plug here as well. Young Entrepreneur Syndicate does have merchandise, and I actually purchased more for Christmas. So you can go to the merchandise link, also the shop, and find something. Help us promote what it is we're doing for you, and plus it looks cool. So I like the design team that we have. Rachel, thank you very much. And it's just fun to get out there and be doing a little bit of everything, just like we talk about. The other thing I want to mention, Jim, too, I'm really glad that you wanted to do the podcast, because if you want to get into the mind of Jim and Rod a little bit, it's like, how did these two find each other? It's different. It's a fun format, and it's just totally different, and we're having fun. So hope you do pick up on that. Thanks for mentioning it, Jim. Other than that, everybody, have a great evening. Thanks for joining us. Those of you watching later online, it's absolutely our pleasure to have you. Thanks.
Thanks, Rod. Bye.